Evans.
Maria Fasciano.
Tom Clow.
Tom Flaherty.
John Merva.
Okay. Now, I'm going to go straight to Jack Dearborn because we won't hold him up while we go through other business later.
Point of order. I want to appoint a secretary since Leah's not here.
Thank you. Are there anybody who?
I'll take notes.
Okay, thank you very much. So I need this guidance, thank you. Jack Dearborn is the chairman of our CIP committee, Capital Improvement Program.
Does everybody have a copy?
Yes.
Good evening. Jack Dearborn, Chair of the
I guess I do.
CIP Subcommittee. You see on page 2 is the members. Myself, Stu Richmond, Vice Chair, Steve Roberts, Gary Shelto, John Osborne, ex officio, and Bruce Fillmore, Planning Board member. Let me just start off by saying that I want to thank the members and also the department heads who spent a lot of time putting these packages together and spent the time reviewing with us at our various committee meetings. And also, I want to thank Naomi for putting all her hard work in, plus
The animals.
plus Beth as well, who also supported us. I mean, it isn't like they don't have enough to do already, so I really appreciate what all they've done. Number 3, and also I just want to say that we exist as a CIP by statute. 674, RSA 674, 5 through 8 defines that towns that have planning boards and master plans are required to do 2 things. One is control the use of the land, which is a traditional role most people would recognize a planning board do. But also, the planning board is also required to run the CIP committee. Well, they actually appoint a subcommittee, which I'm the chair of, and we report to the planning board. And basically, the CIP's intent is that independent body works with the department heads and looks 6 years ahead at least and anticipate what capital assets either buy new, replace, timeliness such that the master plan is supported. Roads, police, fire, recreation, higher education, various other things.
Jack, do you want questions held to the end or as you go?
Well, thank you for bringing that up. Let me get through a couple pages, and when I start doing the departments, I'll do one department at a time and take questions.
Okay.
Get the information out there, so.
The question I was going to bring up right now was related to the master plan. When we see these presented, are they going to be mapped to where they fit into the master plan?
Loosely mapped, meaning there's nothing we're buying new. Everything we're buying, requesting this year, is supporting the existing asset. It isn't like we're starting something brand new. It's like we're mapping into roads, police, fire, library, recreation, those type of things, so.
And all of those are part of the master plan? I just take your word for it?
Well,
Or
you
go
can
look
look,
at it.
if you can find it, you can look it up too.
Okay.
May I just add
It's
something,
15
Jack?
years old.
Just, yeah, that's what I was going to say. Our master plan is outdated. There was a warrant article last year which failed to get consultant help to redo the master plan. So the assets that are listed in there are 15 years old.
Well,
I mean,
divert a little bit. A master plan basically is showing the development of the town. That's really what the intent was.
Yeah, it's your strategy document.
Correct. And when we did, before zoning, we had a master plan. Then we laid back in 88, we finally got it through where we had a zoning package that reflected the goals. Since then, there's been incremental changes through warrant articles and such, so. That's it. That's my best answer.
Thank you.
Okay, everything in this package this year, we're showing for a request, either meets the condition of urgent or necessary. Urgent is basically based on a safety issue. Necessary is something done within 1 year. So basically, both of those. So you could almost throw everything into number one. If you consider roads a safety issue, fire and police, maybe not necessarily Parks and Rec, but we're coming up on some aging on an asset that we currently have. We'll speak later on about that. So all these requests this year is either in one or a two. This page here is really an eye chart, which is page 4 and 5. Basically, as every capital asset, I shouldn't say every, even buildings are capital assets, but mostly things that are vehicles or used for the maintenance of roads are listed here by department. So if you look down through here, you'll see on the left-hand column the various departments. On the right-hand, next one to the right is different type of stuff that's being capital reserve accounts. Those accounts are set up in the past, and money is either put in there incrementally for an expected purchase, or if we purchase an asset and there's a few $1,000s left over, typically it goes in here as a holding place for money that wasn't spent on a given asset. Then we have the items numbers, like you'll see engines 1 through 5, rescues 1 and 2. Then you'll see the actual capital reserve budget balance that we currently have. And some of these aren't necessarily the actual money. Like if there's an in-process purchase, if I got it right now, I mean, with regards to the ambulance, the money doesn't come out until the end for full payment.
No, you don't take the money out till you buy it.
That's what I'm saying. Like, so the money may be encumbered from the previous year, because we haven't,
You haven't taken any money out yet.
okay, but we haven't received it either, have we?
You have to sign the order, right?
What I'm saying is you'll still see the balance, correct? Right, that's my
So
point.
anywhere in here, will we see what the commitments against those funds are?
That's something we should probably do next year. We could probably color code it in some matter. That was a good point.
Yeah.
So moving along, you look at 2023, everything in the 2023 column is this year's request. Everything in 24 through 28 satisfies a 6-year ahead look on capital, so nothing looks like a surprise. This is supposed to be a planning tool going forwards for reasonable purchases within the year and adequate notice of assets coming due or something new. So basically, if you look at the bottom, I know this, forgive me, this is an eye chart, but basically it totals up everything. And what you see also at the bottom is debt service. We've done 2 things we did recently in the past, long-term debt. One is the DPW garage, which finishes up in 2026. And then we continue with road reconstruction until 2029, I believe it is. And the total debt service for this coming years is $431,094. And the total request here is $1.809034. Next page, 5 and 6, is sort of a highlight of what's to come. This is what we call our whiteboard. The whiteboard basically is a distillation of all the requests that came into us, putting them on this year or moving them out to next year. And we talk about each department, like you see fire, DPW, police, and Parks and Rec. You also see the given request for what it's for, impact to taxes, and priorities. So the whole total at the bottom here, if everything was purchased for this year, the gross number is $1,378,000. Offsets, which is the block grant that we get from the state regarding highway fund, That's for supporting our roads. Some of the money that goes when we pay our registration on our vehicles go towards that, and we get it back in the form of a block grant. And also, anything we buy in the fire department that comes out of the equipment fund. We run ambulances. We do charge people for taking them to or from wherever they got to go. And we collect money. We hire a company to collect the money for us. We take it off the receipts, and the balance of it goes into an equipment fund. We can only purchase fire-related equipment out of that fund. So this year, we're requesting $120,000 to buy a utility truck and $15,000 for pagers. Each one of these I'll go into much detail, so let's take the fire first. First item on the fire department is replacement, radio pager and replacements, $15,000. Everybody who's a full-time member or on a call list, there's 25 of those. They carry this. It's not like the pages we used to have in the 60s and 70s and 80s. It's literally a texting where you can literally get the information when there's an emergency, a tone-out, if you will. And it gets transmitted over the capital area, which we went on this year. And we used to be on Goffstown. As a result, programming and all this stuff, a lot of the equipment was bought over a period of 15 to 20 years. A lot of them are well beyond their age and having some serviceability and programmability. So the request this year is to buy 25 of these devices. And for $15,000, as I said earlier, the tax rate for actually raising money at town meeting is zero, because it comes out of the equipment fund.
The quantity 25, does that include fire plus EMS?
That is, I think that's all wrapped into one.
Okay, thank you.
Down below, utility vehicle, we've got a 2003, which is on the left and right on the bottom, utility truck. Now, why does the fire department need this utility truck? Because given all the, the conditions of some driveways and the length of some driveways and Class 6 and private roads that exist in the town of Weare and the extensive Clough State Park back area, somebody calls for an emergency, they roll with the ambulance. And one of the things they need to have is an ability to have a plow on hand and sand roads. And there's some equipment here on the back also in case there's an emergency. So this is a way by which in inclement weather, and even in the wintertime when there's not inclement weather, provides the ability for the ambulance, the fire truck, to actually get to a house, people in need. So this is $105,000. It's a replacement of the F-350. Has aluminum body, not this one, but one similar to this. And the other one was 2003. It was used from everything from sort of what the chief used to use for his car. It was also a utility vehicle. It was, before that, it was the the forestry truck. So it's had its use through the town of Weare, and this is the year they're requesting a replacement. Again, that comes out as zero impact to the taxes for this request. Any questions on the fire before I leave that? Yes, Bill?
Yeah, Jack, maybe more a question for later on how these are presented in a warrant article. But my concern on this is always how much money is going to be available as we look at the out years. I always ask that question.
I got the answer.
And what I noticed this year is that when they talk about a tanker and an engine, they were, a year ago, it was 2026 and 2028 was set with certain costs. They both moved up and jumped up to 2024 and 2026. So the calendar moved up 2 years and the costs moved up this much.
Right.
And I don't take issue with, let the utility truck and the pagers justify themselves, but
Got it.
we can't be short-sighted, and I think it should be put on a separate warrant article to up or down
Well,
and
these
paid
will be.
for.
I believe these will be up on separate ones.
Paid for by taxation this year, not out of the reserve. That reserve,
Oh.
what I'm saying is the
That's a
reserve
different
fund,
problem.
the reserve fund,
Let me give you the numbers.
when they go to buy an engine or a tanker,
Let me give you my canned speech, it might help you.
okay,
Chief left,
all right,
we have Bobby. Bobby has friends, Bobby Riches is the assistant chief, I should say, he was a deputy chief and now he's the acting chief. And with all this inflationary pressure we've been under, price of fire equipment around the country has gone up considerably. So, one way to force the issue of a discussion was to place it for next year. And there's two independent costing exercises that went on. They both came in approximately $850. So, I think you're gonna find that the fire awards are gonna push this into a conversation where, do they need to have a pumper and a tack truck separate, or can you make it one and the same? So, I'm not saying it won't show up next year, but it might show up as a different flavor than what's in the next year's look. As far as the 850 goes, conservative numbers is within $76,000 of meeting that 850 next year. So, I know, it's an issue, but right now we have over $707,000 in the fund that I don't know exactly what date that was snapped on, but I understand that to be the case.
how much was it, Jack?
707,000.
About 700,000, yeah.
And it's a little hard to guess, but history has shown they're running about 180 a year accruing. And since we had 8 members come on full-time, and if we have paramedics over EMTs, the billing rate is higher. The fixed amount that's taken out for the billing itself stays the same. So I had a lengthy discussion with both the fire ward and Bobby himself. And it'll be interesting to see what shows up next year. I don't think, for what I see, financially, I don't think it's gonna be a problem.
Okay.
I know, I understand the point.
Because even the year beyond that, there's an ambulance listed there for another, on the out year beyond that. Those are all big purchases, and I just don't want the voters to be saying, hey, this money, is set aside so we don't have a big shortfall where we're gonna buy a big piece of equipment, and then it's gonna be, oh, now we gotta raise taxation in the same year, and people are gonna say, wait a minute, I thought that special revenue fund was supposed to pay for that.
That's the intent. That's how I understand it. And I think most of the town understands that too. I'm looking for the Board of Fire Awards and whoever the chief is next year to come in and tell us how they're gonna solve this quandary. I'll be pushing for that next year.
Yeah, I wish they'd tell us this year, so we,
Well,
maybe, but that's okay.
if the chief
Hey,
was still here, it may have come to
yeah,
fruition.
I don't wanna belabor it, so that's okay.
So, right now, the way that's presented to the planning board, the select board, and yourselves tonight, almost like 3 nights in a row, this is the way it is.
Okay.
Any other questions on the police, and, any questions on the fire and the rescue? Yes, sir.
Yes, just 2 quick questions. The pager replacement, there was no money in the ARPA funds for that sort of equipment that didn't
Well,
go
the
on?
ARPA fund, correct me if I'm wrong, Naomi, could be spent anything the town of Weare wanted other than operating budget. So, I think that's going for a radio system
Yeah,
for the police.
right.
Fire already went to capital last year, which was just a cutover of the frequency for them to manage, and we pay certainly a subscription fee.
So fire equipment was kind of separated out of that.
Well,
There was some
fire
funds-
department's got its own fund.
Yeah.
That's why we basically funnel the money after paying the cost of operating that
Okay.
service.
Right.
I mean, that's the best notice I got tonight. Tom?
Not really a question, but just, I think it help a clarification. If the need is pressing for a given year, as it appears on here, and it comes up a little short, we have many warrant articles that say X number of dollars to come from such and such a fund, and the rest to be used, be paid for out of taxation. So, you know, that's not ideal, but it's a possibility if the tanker just springs a leak and needs to be replaced and there's no alternative and there's not quite enough money there, it's a possibility that way too.
But still, I think that, I think this will stimulate the discussion. It was too late to change the request. It was late in the game. I personally took the effort to go and have a conversation, and I basically had the same questions you asked, you know, and when I looked at the projection of the funding, it's like, okay, well, be a challenge for next year. So,
From what you said, it's going to be even more of a challenge in 2026, right?
well, you would have recruited another $600,000.
But
So, I mean,
that'll put you,
I
you
think
know,
the question
200 plus
is,
short.
do they want to, see, we're really not here on 2024. I don't mind having the conversation. But for what I can see to date, based on the information I know, and based on the conversations, isn't clear if that's actually going to be on the thing next year. Unfortunately, it's a target for this year to discuss. I understand that. That was my first concern when I heard it. Okay. Police Department next. Again, like last year, it was unfortunate we didn't get the vehicle. This year, a request is made, and last year was roughly $70,000. And so, without having any other information, because supply chains and everything else is disrupting the delivery of vehicles, we can't even get a price on the actual vehicle. We can get some price on the chattel, everything that goes inside the vehicle, such as the lights, the sirens, the rear bench, you know, everything else to do with it. This is not an ordinary vehicle. This is a purpose-built police vehicle. It's four-wheel drive, actually. It has more clearance. And the problems with the Chargers, if they get off onto dirt roads or even on the winter on some of these roads, they drag because they don't have enough height. That's just an issue we have with that particular vehicle, the Chargers. And basically, we added 10% only because we worked it with the chief that we figured that was a reasonable estimation of the cost. So what it would be. There's no more magic than that. And we toyed with going up to 12%, but we were at the point where we didn't really want to have more in there than we absolutely need, and nobody knows exactly where the sweet spot is. So if it comes in at 8%, we only spend 8% over. Just the way it is. And the problem with our procurement system, I shouldn't say it's a problem, it's the nature of the beast. You have to have enough money to be approved by the town and potentially raised by the town so that you could actually buy the thing. Because if you can't, you're in trouble. So these tend to be, in this time, is trying to anticipate what everybody else is guessing what inflation's going to be. So we picked 10% over last year's price. And we can't even validate what last year's price was because we didn't buy one. And just some, this is basically, the only request is 6 cents on the tax rate. If you want to look at mileage on vehicles, you'll see the mileage down below here on page 11. You'll see, by virtue of the vehicles, the actual mileage of the vehicle, which is on the odometer. And then there's another factor that a lot of police departments put in, which is idle hours. Basically, you're putting wear and tear on all the engine and all of its components, the air conditioning, everything else, the heat, and also part of the transmission by sitting there just idling. So the right-hand column is basically the factored total, if you will, but the actual miles are here. Number one here is the Ford Explorer 2013, 140,000 miles. The next page is showing repair costs. This is just, yes, repair cost, yes. And 12 and 13 is a notional rotation that the chief put, we requested the chief put together a notional rotation in the years. And the part of the problem is, if one of these other cars die early, it's going to be the candidate to be rotated out. Based on everything he knows, this is what he came up with. So, any questions on the police? Bill?
Yeah, again, there was some talk, I know, during the process of two vehicles or one vehicle. Is this Tahoe that they're putting here, is that replacing the Explorer, or are they adding a vehicle?
He came in with two requests.
Right,
Okay?
right.
A request was, first one was this vehicle, which is a full-up pursuit vehicle or a full-up patrol vehicle, if you
Right.
will. Then his other request was a command vehicle, because should, this is his rationale, I'm just giving it to you. Having a vehicle that would have 3 radios in, should, unfortunate to the town of Weare happen, which happens around the country, at a school, any given school, they've only got one radio in the vehicle. So his thought was putting 3 radios, one for the police, one for the local guys, and one for listening into the school on their frequency. So based on the budget constraints this year and the pressure from the economy, we basically picked the patrol vehicle, which is more ubiquitous for everything we do here. So, is that a reasonable request? Heaven forbid anything happens here, it sure will be. But right now, given this year, we're only requesting one vehicle.
Yeah, but basically, you would keep the Explorer, so he's adding a vehicle to the inventory.
Well,
Is that,
until that thing cracks in
yeah,
half or
yeah,
whatever. I don't know, I mean, if he is, we used to have 11 cars, okay?
that's what,
And
yeah.
only through attrition did we get down to 6 cars, and frankly, for a couple of weeks in the summer of maybe 2016 or 15, whatever it was, the only car that was running was the chief's little powder puff Ford Taurus. It wasn't even a patrol vehicle. Then we bought the 3, then we bought the 1 and the 1,
Yeah.
and finally one more. If you got training, everything else that goes, and then the question is, if you're pulling mileage on 6 vehicles, adds up faster than on 7.
Yeah,
So the real
that's,
question here is trying to manage the fleet.
yeah, it's just a separate issue. Maybe it's my personal bone to pick. They've been operating for 3 years with the current number of patrol vehicles.
Yeah, but he
Yeah.
also, it's a question of wearing them out too.
When one wears out, please order a new one and replace one, but don't trickle
Well,
down.
I'm not the police chief.
I understand.
I don't get into those details personally. We hire him to do it. The select board are hired to run the police.
Yep.
And we're here to basically identify assets.
Clarification, if you would, please, Jack, on this is not the command vehicle, you've established that.
This is the patrol.
So the second one that they requested was the command vehicle?
Yes,
and
yes,
it
it's
was not-
basically the same vehicle, less
Yeah,
different markings, not as many lights and such, and equipment inside from a standpoint of safety, for their personal office, if you will. It becomes a different personality of the vehicle.
right. So
Right
there-
now, they're gonna have to figure out how to solve that if it ever happens.
So the CIP did not approve that request that
Correct.
the police force came forward with.
We only picked the patrol.
And that was simply because you thought they were spending too much money, not because you didn't think it was necessary for
Well-
safety? Didn't fall into one or two,
Well, it's really, we felt.
urgent or necessary?
Yeah, I guess it isn't, we didn't feel it was, I don't think we really nailed that down, I'll give you my opinion. I thought it was really asking for two and one would suffice. And if he had come in for a command, we might have argued for a patrol. It's just a question of what we made a decision that year, this year. Now, he could very well come back next year with it, and it might be appropriate. I'm not saying it was a bad idea, I'm just saying based on the budget and trying to keep the budget flat for capital assets, because we gotta pay out of pocket and we gotta pay the two other long-term bonds as well. So, that's how I think we considered it.
I know the chief has been trying to get these types of things rolled into his operating budget. Do you have any idea what the timing is for any decision, should there be one?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I don't,
Just
we
nothing
don't
that
deal
you're
with
aware of
those.
imminent?
It could still pop up this year, I really don't know.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, done with police. At this point, Parks and Rec, and I did ask for a person who came before us on Parks and Recs to present this. I'll try to do my best. If there's any other questions, she can help. Basically, this is an upgraded replacement, whatever you want to call it, of the 1976 tennis court. And that is, for anybody who doesn't know that, that's located out in the, by the library and by the Legion Hall. So basically, this is year one of 320,000, excuse me, 220,000s and 350,000 requests for a period of 5 years. So this is the first, and the purpose of this is to establish a capital reserve to accrue this money. And whether this gets done here, where the current place is, or up in Einison, that's another issue. The real question is, this has been, what's the proper term? Resurfaced, some form, crack filled and resurfaced.
Yeah, it's been resurfaced this year for the third and final time. We were told that it will no longer need to be repaired.
And all the cracks are reflecting up through again, as you might expect, because the base, asphalt shrinks over a period of time. The asphalt is petroleum-based. It dries out, everything shrinks, you get cracks, and basically it's unstable. And probably the base isn't the best it probably could be today. It was done in '76. And so, basically, this is for not only, why don't you explain what the use is gonna be? Yeah, just come up.
For those of you who don't know me, my name is Denise Purington. I'm on Parks and Rec. I'm not the chair, the vice chair, but I've been working on this project. So as Jack mentioned, it's a facility that was established in 1976 through a donation by a community member, partly by a grant from the state, and also the land was donated by the Coburn family. So it's a 40-plus-year-old facility that needs to be replaced. Currently, the facility is being used by both tennis players and pickleball players. So pickleball is a new sport. It's the largest growing sport in the country, actually. And so the tennis players continue to use the courts on a fairly regular basis, and it's being used by pickleball almost, I would say, 4 to 5 days and evenings a week. So there's quite a bit of usage for the courts right now. If you go by there any day of the week in the summer, it's pretty busy. So we have to think about a 5-year plan. We were told that the resurfacing this year would be a 2 to 5 year, probably closer to 2 because the cracks have already started again. But many people have been using it with the cracks for a number of years, although it almost was shut down this year due to safety concerns over the height of the cracks, because you don't want anybody tripping. It's one thing if a ball ricochets off them, but you don't want people to. So Parks and Rec's in the process of really looking at the whole big picture, but we were told about a year and a half ago that it's about $100,000 per tennis court for the replacement. Includes taking down the fence, grinding up the surface. As Jack mentioned, surfaces are different now. Fencing, the lighting has been destroyed. And we're also looking at the same grant that was granted to us in 1976 to build this. It is a matching grant through the state. So what we would hope is that if the selectmen were supportive of us moving forward in applying for the grant, over the next 3 years, if we could receive a matching grant, then we could cut the cost of replacing the courts in half through that matching grant, and hopefully some in-kind donations through businesses in the community. You know, maybe gravel brought in or lighting supplied or whatever. But I think if we don't start planning, what's going to happen is the courts will come to an end, we'll have to shut them down, and then come to the town for a large amount of money. So Parks and Rec felt if we could establish the capital reserve fund, at least begin funding it this year with a little bit of money, it gives us this upcoming year to really look at the full cost and to find out from the selectmen if they are supportive with us moving forward with the grant. I've already spoken to the state at length. They're very well aware of this facility from when they granted us money the last time. As with anything with a state federal grant, there are some contingencies that we have to consider. Has to be handicap accessible as one example. So we have to make sure that before we go forward with the application, that the town understands some of those contingencies. But I do believe we have a fairly good chance of getting this grant. It takes about a year to apply and find out if you receive it. Then you'd have to come to the town during town voting to vote to receive it. And then you have I think it's 2 years to spend it, and you can extend that 2 more years. So hence that kind of 5-year plan of how do we get to where we need to be in 5 years from now. So we're really just hoping that the capital reserve and funding it with a little bit of money can get us started. We'd come back next year with a better idea based on whether or not we think we can get money from the state or not, with what we would fund in year 2, 3, 4, and 5 if we needed to. I think we just did an estimate, what you see on here, just as a way to put a place marker at this point in time. And it's hard because a year and a half ago it was 100,000. Materials have gone up, but then they may come back down again. So really that's what Parks and Rec is looking for. It is a facility. We have many facilities that we support for the youth of the town. And this facility can be used by anybody, and it is used by anybody, but it is a facility that's primarily used by the adult and senior population in the town. So we really want to preserve it. We don't want to lose it. Parks and Rec feels like it's been a part of the town since 1976, and we should maintain that. So that's kind of, I don't know if you have a question or...
Do you have any estimate of how many residents use the courts on an annual basis?
Well, I would say, I'm going to say, so you obviously can't use it in the winter. As soon as spring starts and the courts are open, I would say at least Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday, there are 2 to 4 pickleball courts going, so that's 12 to 15 people. And then 2 to 3 evenings a week, it's used by probably another 8. And then we have a variety of tennis players. We have high school students who now are coming down and using it for pickleball. We've had a couple college students who graduated from John Stark. So, is it hundreds a day? No, but the facility is, some days all 4 courts are going. So it's being used at full capacity. There's other days you might go by on a Sunday and nobody's using it, but I think if you look at utilization now compared to 3 years ago before pickleball came to be. It was hardly being used at all. And now the pickleball club has about 75 active members in the club. And they, to date, the pickleball club, which is they're not really a formal club, but they have paid for all equipment, nets, balls. And before I became on Parks and Recs as a representative for Weare Pickleball, I went to the Emma Sawyer Trust, and they are who paid for the resurfacing. So it did not come out of taxpayer dollars, but they were very supportive because they saw the increased use and the fact that I would say 50% of those people using it are over the age of 55. So it's used quite a bit by seniors who are more interested in being out playing tennis and pickleball than maybe inside in a facility, doing other things.
So all the use of it is basically the individual comes to you and says, we want to reserve it. There is no
Nope, and if
active,
you just show up.
there's
you
no
just-
active by the Parks and Rec Department to say, we're going to have a pickleball season.
Um,
and sign up here.
Parks and Recs opens the courts both for tennis and pickleball. We have a set of rules that's on the Facebook page. Pickleball has to yield one court to tennis or vice versa. So if 8 pickleball players and 4 tennis players show up, they share the courts. The club puts out a schedule. People do schedule to play, but under the agreement that it is open to whoever shows up. So there is no reserving the courts at this point. We've talked about it, but that becomes difficult.
Staffing, yeah.
It's been working to share the courts. We've had a lot of positive feedback. And as I said, from 8 in the morning till probably 11:30, at least 4 days a week, it's actively being used. And then Tuesdays and Thursdays from about 5:30, 6 o'clock until dark, it's being used again by other groups. So it's getting quite a bit of utilization compared to the past. It's kind of hard to put a number on how many townspeople, but it's like saying how many people use Chase Park. We keep it open for the use, and anybody can go in when they want. Nobody is restricted from town. It's a share, first come, first serve, everybody shares and plays together.
Thank you.
Are we all set? So there's quite a ways to go on here, too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Denise.
Yep.
Appreciate you coming. With that, moving on to page 15, we're talking about Public Works at this point. And 3 requests. The bottom one, let me take the bottom one first, road reconstruction. Basically, that is a catch-all for everything that needs to be purchased. Salt, sand that's crushed to go on roads, sand that's sifted from the material to spread in the wintertime, guardrails, culverts, go down the list. Everything other than labor's out of that. This is the only budget that's used, and they buy asphalt out of it. They buy large amounts of gravel. This is where road reconstruction, rebuilding roads, we don't build new roads. We basically rehab roads, which really require most of these really tough ones, grind them all up, pull out the rocks, the stumps that were left there from 100 years ago, and relay the bed, and then put crushed bank run down, grade it to the profile, put new culverts in. So this is basically what keeps the folks busy during the summer times. And so $600,000 was requested by Benji, and then a request came in from Benji and from a person who happened to bring it forward is the library. That parking lot, that road which leads to the library, I don't know what it's called, Memorial Drive or something, I don't know.
Page Memorial Lane.
Is it Page? Okay, I can't keep them straight. And then in front of the Legion Hall, that area basically has been a patchwork quilt, and there's 2 culverts in there, or actually drains, if you will, that keep eroding and falling in, and the town has to go keep Mickey Mouse in those to keep them so they drain. So a request came in for a separate request because it seems like that never gets done because it's always falling on the lower end of the list. So a request came in for an extra 40,000 for this, just for this year. So there's 600,000 for the annual request, plus 40,000 to do that piece, and that requires ripping up all the asphalt, digging out the stumps and rocks, whatever's in there that shouldn't be there, redoing the catch basin, any piping that has to be repaired, and to go off it for the drainage, and then putting 2 inches down plus 1 inch of asphalt for a total of 3 inches, and rehabbing that for the next 30 years. So 600 is the request that is made for everything else, and the 40 is just for that particular one. So we felt it was important to bring it forwards, and Benji was, at the time, still the DPW director, and he brought it in, and he did the estimate, so we're we think it's pretty solid as far as the scope of the work goes. Any questions on that? We do this every year. The challenge of making this budget work for the 600 is diesel drives everything. Price of diesel, whether you're bringing rocks from here and gravel from there and moving tar and asphalt, running the excavators. Everything's driven by the cost of diesel. And then everything's on top of that is buying new trucks for the companies that support this work, the commercial companies. So every year, I don't know, we already bid next year's already? We know what the price, no. So the funny thing is, asphalt is the last thing that comes out of the pot when you're distilling oil. And you don't distill to get asphalt. It's a byproduct. Yeah. So as a result, there's only so much. If there's less oil being done, there's less asphalt, which means people have a big demand on it, the prices go up. So basically what happens is, once a year, the town bids so much a ton in place. In other words, I don't know, is it R&D we usually get?
They've used it the last few years.
R&D is the company, it's a big company. Basically, we'd have everything prepped, ready to go. They'll come in and do the final grading, and they'll lay the 2 inches down this calendar year. Then the following year, after that year of settling, see if there's any issues, drainage or whatever, then they'll come back and put the 1 inch. So we have 2 inches of binder base and 1 inch. So this is always fixing this year's work, and we have to reserve some money, not reserve, but I allocate a certain amount of this money for doing the next year's 1 inch overlay. So they've been very good about recouping, depending on the road, we can get maybe a couple miles of road. And you remember a few years ago, we weren't ever going to catch up because some roads deserve to be shim and overlaid, which means roads sag over time. You put a shim on it to even everything up, which could be as much as 2 inches in certain spots. Then you put 1 inch on top, which is what's considered the wear coat. And we didn't have enough money to ever fix them. So that's why 4 or 5 years ago, whenever it was, we got the road, what was that?
Preservation bond,
What was it?
The bond.
road preservation bond.
Yeah, term preservation. All we did is find roads that had candidates to, we call them yellow roads. In other words, given another few years, they become red, which means you got to rebuild the whole thing. So we were able to preserve and cut the cost way down. We picked $2.5 million to basically lay asphalt. And some of these roads we can't do all in 1 year because some had culverts, some had some problems with guardrails, so some of those issues have to be resolved. But most of that money is expended, and we've extended those roads. Now, this money is basically used to fix the really bad roads. I mean, we could spend about $600,000 during the summer. If you want to spend more than that, you'd have to go out and probably hire companies to come and do it. Then you have to get all kinds of engineering involved, bonding and everything else. So this seems to be the sizable bite we can take and do for the town with the equipment we have. Any questions on road reconstruction?
How many red roads does Weare have?
I used to know that. I used to know how many miles too. we're, I don't know.
Yeah, Miles is probably a better, Miles is probably a better,
It is, and
Denominator.
basically what Benji and I did, he's got a little device on his town truck. You could punch it, and it says, start here, and we would drive until the road changed personality, and we would say, this is this is 0.3 miles of this class of road, and we drive until we change again, and we figure out our class. So the entire town's asphalt roads was done that way. And I don't know, a lot of these are short roads. The biggest one, the couple that have been done is Reservoir Drive, a big chunk of River Road, and there's a whole bunch of little ones that were done, which are really subdivision roads, which were done back in the 70s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, without any real specifications. So you get what you got. And they required a lot of rework. Grind up everything, figure out what's underneath there that shouldn't be there, and bring in more material and build it up. Bogue Road is a good example, up on the mountain, by Mountain Road, Bogue Road, that area was all redone the last few years, so. But,
then you probably don't know how many miles or how many roads are going to be resolved with the 2023 funding?
Well-
Red status?
it's a question of how much asphalt does it need? We say shim and overlay. Well,
Is that 1 inch or 3?
you know what 1 inch is, but you don't know how much to fix the unevenness. So you gotta kind of like smooth it over.
Did you see the original spreadsheet?
No.
Do you still have it?
I'll ask.
But I don't know what the
Best
status
Buddy
is.
Right, I know, but we know what we paved over already. So your
I
status
don't
changed.
know as if we updated that. It'd been nice to if we updated that, saying we
Well,
tick
we know
these
what
on.
we paved since then.
I don't know. Maybe,
Yeah, I can get her that and see
Yeah.
what we can find out.
I don't have that
And
data,
then we'll- I'll ask.
Thank you.
but
Just total roads, I asked this question while Benji was still here. It's about 75 miles of paved roads in town. A few years
that we
ago.
own.
Yeah, right. A few years ago, the estimate was to totally rebuild a road that's gone. You have to start from scratch with about $200,000 over a 2-year period by doing all the groundwork, and then that includes the finish coat for a second year. So
That's real mile. It's 200,000 a mile.
Per mile.
200,000 a mile, that's what I meant. I'm sorry, I should have made that clear. You got 75 miles of roads, 200,000 per mile to rebuild, then that's what Jack's saying, you better save them.
Yeah, this doesn't go very far, if you're rebuilding River Road.
Right,
I mean,
9 miles.
everything's been pecked away at in the worst spots, and then you fix it. And I don't exactly have that information. We had every road laid out for a class of road that was like green, meaning you don't have to do anything with it. Wide 3, 6, and 9, which means the years before they become red, and red roads. So we pretty much resurfaced all the 9s and 6s with the 2.5 million. We basically figured out how many tons we needed, what the price per ton was, and we figured out, how much money we needed. And we're not gonna have a lot of money left over. As a matter of fact, they basically stop. When they do the construction, when they figure out what that's all about, they do the 2 inches, figure out the rest goes to shim and overlay roads that were done the previous year. Shim that 1 inch of the previous year's roads. So, there's not a lot of money standing around here, and it's basically used for that purpose. 2 vehicles. Same vehicles we purchased last year. We've got some vehicles that get very long in the tooth, these Volvos that were bought back in the 2000s. They have, most of them have mild steel bodies, which if you look another page, you'll see the rusting. Today, what he's buying is, these 6-wheelers get replaced by a 12-wheeler. Why is that? Because if you're gonna come back as a plow truck, you don't wanna be a town of Weare plow truck. You wanna be a state of New Hampshire, that stays on flat, relatively flat, bump-free. These things have to go on the back roads, dirt roads and Class 5 roads, and they're freighted down. A six-wheeler gets freighted so much in order to make a run for sanding and plowing, and then come back. So to solve this problem, and there's a lot of breakage on six wheels, because only four wheels, one axle is supporting the rear, carries most of the weight. And wheels go, rims go, differentials go out, and also the actual housing. So one of the solutions was to go on, I think it's page 16. And this is, you can see it's a little bit shorter. This is like a 12 or 13 yard body. So it's pretty much impossible. This is a sander body too, as well as a dump body. So it not only dumps as a typical dump would do, but it also does horizontally as well. You can see it picking up on the bottom. So it puts all the sand to the sides so it can dump out the entire load. For the time we've been running these 10-wheeler replacement trucks, up to this year, not any major repairs. And these bodies are made out of this Hardox, which is a specially formulated steel. I think Sweden came up with a metallurgy solution of this. Now it's basically, handling salt out in the weather vehicles. Costs more, but they last longer. Before Benji has to replace dump bodies, and they're not cheap on an old truck. So you got a beat-up truck that's ready to be, in a few years, be retired. You can put a brand-new body on it. So basically, this year, Benji made the case. He asked for two last year. One was bought with, I guess it was the unused budget from the year, and the other one was paid out of taxes for this current year. And I don't know if two go up. I can't remember. Did two go up on the warrant last year or one? Yeah, only one was supported, and it's not solving the problem. And like I say, these Volvos have problems where the metallurgy is prone for rust, decay, and the engines were like a first-generation electronic diesels, and even Volvo don't want to see them for repair. So the team down there tried to get them running, and it's really a question of getting all 11 of these big trucks. If it snowed tonight, they'd all have to be loaded up and sent out, and it's very probabilistic that 2 or 3 would not be able to be out there and ready for service, which means the mechanics have to get busy, and people are standing around. They're supposed to be driving trucks, waiting for the truck. So when they get in the truck, if it ever gets fixed, they're on overtime. So as far as the service delivery, this has an impact in the service delivery, plus every time a vehicle's out in the wintertime especially, that road is not being sanded. So try to get a handle on this. We've been doing incrementally one a year. But so for this year, what's being selected, look on page 18, you'll see T8 and T9. 9 is the last of the internationals. And the green one is this year's, that was purchased last year, that hasn't come in yet. Supposedly, if T5 is still the worst one, that'll get sent to the auction. And we get $3,000 to $2,000 or whatever it is. Not a lot for a vehicle, and that could actually have a good transmission or an engine we have to replace. So, but or a body. But again, nobody wants the truck if it's all wore out. And this year, 7 and 8 and 9, and if something else becomes worse, it'll be replaced earlier. But this is based on what their opinion of which ones are in the queue. It doesn't mean it's gonna be actually that vehicle. So any questions on the trucks? That's the same story as last year, as this year. I mean, they're hot, we used to buy these trucks 10 years ago for about 180, 160. 2 years ago, we were buying these for 115, 215, I'm sorry. They're at 260 now. And when you listen to all the quote experts financial, the supply chain won't be fixed for a couple more years. And in order to get the inflationary spiral tamed by the Fed, it'd probably be another 4 years. So these prices keep going up, and more regulations get placed on them for the manufacturers, so they have to meet it. Just on page 18 and 19 are the vehicles, well, I should say equipment. Anything does, I guess, that doesn't go on the road per se for the DPW, like bulldozers, mowers, chippers, rollers, and stuff like that. And then fleet rotation, this is sort of where historically, a view back to 2000, we took a hiatus for a reason, a good reason, I don't know. We took a hiatus for 6 years. We didn't buy any vehicles. It was tough times back there in '09 through '15. That was the stagnation, I think they called it, plus a big crash in 2008. And as a result of that, we're now forced to put everything on a roll, so to speak, without any brakes. And in the future, if we don't get rid of a truck before it starts becoming a problem and sell it off and buy a new one, we're going to repeat this in 10 more years, 15 more years. So I think the DPW is very prudent on what trucks they want, in what order, and whatever equipment he wants with it as well. So, any questions on the DPW garage?
John?
Next.
Oh, I got a quick question. It goes back to the roads real quick.
Sure.
Are you at the end of DPW, or you got more?
I'm going to summarize. I mean,
Okay.
you're going to ask now.
So real quick, there was a highway block grant that just came in the past couple months,
200 and
60-something thousand.
283?
Yeah.
I don't know, magic number.
Was that,
Get bridge money too.
That gets subtracted off the price. If you look back here, you'll see on page
15.
15, is it? Look on page 15, you'll see the adjustment taken off the price.
so that's the 283, that's what that is?
263, yes.
No, that's matching grants from the state.
What's the anticipated?
Yes, that comes off of reconstruction. That's a 365, 035. That is the block grant that gets subtracted, and the result of the difference, 28 cents to pay for material for the roads.
Right, but we just got a unanticipated revenue from the state for roads and bridges, and it was
I
260,000
don't
for
know anything
roads.
about this, but I think the operative term is bridges.
Well, there was a
Road?
road,
There was two different prices.
yeah,
There was two different prices.
it was a road component and a bridge component, and the bridge one you can only use, I think, for bridges, but I don't know if it was decided if that money was gonna be spent.
It's not us,
It's not,
select board. I don't know the details, do you know?
We haven't got the bridge money. We did get the road money. We have not gotten the bridge money yet.
have we already spent it, or it went into the general
It's
fund?
sitting in the fund.
So, okay.
We accepted it.
Right, so we have the money, but,
We haven't got the bridge money yet. Because we had the public hearing to accept both.
right, yeah, but we haven't decided how to spend.
It was part of that Build Better America or whatever the heck
Right.
it was called.
When that was being discussed, I thought it was pretty clear that it was to supplement, not
Offset.
offset what would normally be spent. So it would give us the opportunity to do, well, more, rather than to, but that, again, I don't know where the board is on that, so I'm just
There's
saying,
been a lot of changes, so I think we have to revisit things.
CIP doesn't get involved in that end of the business. We show the request, and if there's additional funds that can be applied to this, the selectmen's
That's
will do that.
the selectmen's purvey. Okay, all right, thanks.
The last page is another eye chart. You begin with an eye chart, and you end with an eye chart. This one here,
Cruel this late at night.
Huh?
It's pretty cruel this late at night.
well, ask too many questions, it gets later.
I know.
So,
I deserve that.
long-term debt is, so the way to look at it is, right in the center, there's a bold vertical line. Everything to the left of that is history. Most recent is closest to the line. Everything to the right is the future. You'll see long-term debt, DPW garage, it goes down and it finishes up on 2026. And then you'll see the road preservation finishes up on 2029. There's a two years at 452 concatenated together. And then you'll see the subtotal of that. We no longer lease vehicles. We were leasing vehicles and buying ambulances on lease, which basically says you pay a little bit of an interest rate when it was 2% interest, and you pay equal number of payments, and you basically own it for $1 afterwards. You're not traditionally leasing. This is called a municipal lease. We haven't done that. We're not recommending doing that because the lease cost would probably be 6-7%. You know, if you bought it for 3 years, you get the first year free, you got to put the first one down. Then you get 2/3 the money at that rate, and 1/3 the money the next year. It winds up being a significant burden rather than just buy it out. So if we manage the capital budgets such that we have a pretty level loading on the year to year. So there's a subdivision, so basically there's a total of long and short, which you see is going down except for the last year, which is 2 years. Then you see, these are the in-year capital expenses. If you looked at every year going back, you would see this purchases. Then you go over here, you see debt plus capital is the 1.809 that was on the first page, debt service, and then you have the offsetting revenues. You come down here and for this year is 1.40569, and the tax impact for this year for everything we discussed, based on all the assumptions, is $1.10, and last year was $1.15. So why is that? We're spending less, and also the tax base grew, meaning the number of properties in the town. We raise X dollars. If you got a bigger tax base, divide it out, and it reduces the tax rate down. So we're down on our expenses 5 cents from last year. That's my pitch. Anybody have any questions?
Just from a historical perspective, 2022, the offsetting revenues were about $750K.
Yeah, why was that?
Why was that higher than normal
Because
years?
we took 260 out of the fund balance to buy the truck.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, yeah, that's right. So if you got any questions in the future, I'm,
Preservation, bond, you know, that whole presentation that we did is on the website, on the DPW page.
Okay.
If you click on it, it's all there. It's got the whole list at the back of all of it.
Thank you.
Hmm?
Anyone else have questions of
if you
Jack?
got any questions in the future, put them through Tom. Tom and I can talk, or if I can come back if it's necessary. Or department heads if you really need it.
Yeah.
So with that, thank you for the time.
Thank you.
See you next year. Maybe. Thank you.
Have a good night.
Good night, Jack. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Oh, you too.
So, just usually we have the fire chief and the police chief, and
Coming up.
are they not? Oh, they are going to.
They'll, town department heads, our next meeting, which would be December
Okay.
7th. I missed the 7 because I put 7 PM.
Yeah.
That should have been December 7th.
Okay. Just wondered,
So we have questions, and of course, this all goes to the Board of Selectmen, and they have to decide what they want to do as far as warrant articles with this. Some of this may come out like it is presented for the CIP, but they certainly have the power to do differently than what the CIP recommended on it. So, the rest of this won't take very long. When we met a couple weeks ago, or last month, the moderator didn't pass out the code of ethics, which are always signed by this committee, or anybody who takes a job or committee assignment. And so if we could do this now, and just put them, they're just something to put on file, so everybody will behave themselves, you know, or attempt to.
always a good idea.
So if you could sign them, I'll just take them back and take them home and correct them.
You have to give them back, you have to give them to Maureen.
Pardon me?
Maureen will take them.
Maureen takes them, okay. Just one other thing concerning membership on the committee. James Drury, who has been on the committee, is still on it, even though he wasn't here. He had family commitments for both of our 2 meetings, but he will be here, I assume, for the next meeting. I talked to him. He has been attending the selectmen's meetings because he was previously on the committee to attend town. So I just talked to him last night at the selectmen's meeting. That's his plan.
What about Tammy Hagman?
Tammy is not. She wasn't on last year either.
Okay. Her name is still on the
Yeah,
website.
yeah, I know. I don't know why, but I know she's not because, okay.
The ads are on there, but she's still on there from, at the top. Because according to the ordinance, we do have the ability to remove members as we see fit. And if
Right.
she's not coming and says she's not going to come, then we should definitely remove
She
her.
resigned, she's messaged her.
Yeah, I don't know why it's still on the website. She,
Has
She
resigned.
wasn't at a meeting last year,
Yeah.
though. Never attended a meeting last year.
pardon me?
She said that she doesn't think she knew that.
She
Oh.
resigned.
Yeah,
We
was
would
it?
have taken her off.
Yeah, she was on the committee the year before last,
Yeah.
but not at all last year.
She never attended a meeting last
Do
year.
you need anything else to remove her from the website?
Oh, she sent an email, he says?
Yeah,
Anybody else have these? That, if so, just pass them down and take care of them. Guys, you have a chance to sign yours? Or do you want to take it home and read it, or? No, I emailed Jackie Coe, the superintendent of schools, and asked her to get back to me, so I don't have dates for their presentation or their deliberative sessions, but they're probably on their website anyways,
Yeah.
the deliberative sessions.
Yeah, Tom went to the meeting Tuesday night. I'm embarrassed to say had it written down as Wednesday.
Oh, yeah.
Wednesday came along and I said, I gotta get on to the meeting, and I looked and I said, nope, I missed it. But what they distributed, this is for the Weare schools, they distributed just what I call and Tom, I think, sent out something on it, just the general overview without the details and the breakdowns. And they were looking at, I think overall what have I got here, 4.3% increase in the 23-24 proposed budget over the current budget. And the default would be 4.06%. They're pretty close because the teachers' contracts that are approved build into both of them increase it. And there's only about a 0.3% or about $58,000 difference between their proposed and default budget. This sounds a lot like Stark has done in the past. But that all subject to change, and they're going to have their budget work session for the Weare schools is December 6th from 5 to 7.
The 6th? Yeah.
The 6th, right.
Do they have any contracts up this year?
No, no, everything, last year was the teacher's contract and the support staff contract for Weare schools. So it's clean, there should just be a operating budget. I don't know if there'll be anything else that comes along, but hopefully they don't have the one that Stark put in their budget request to withhold money for their capital improvement. I remember the separate vote in the summertime when nobody was around to vote.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
To have it apply to
Yeah.
perpetuity?
Yeah, yeah. I talked to Chris Roy last night. I went to the SA, you know how they have an SAU budget at the meeting, nobody talks much about that. I just wanted to sit down on that. So I went over last night and just listened to that. And I'll talk just a second about that in a second. But the drivers on their main budget, salaries increase didn't go up as much as what you would have expected with the contract increases, because they've removed some staff positions in the schools where it was difficult to hire, and they've contracted out those services. So what you're going to see somehow in their contract line is going to go way up, whereas the salaries impact didn't go up as much as expected. So you'll see some of that and that coming down in one respect, but it's kicked over to where they've now contracted those services, so it goes up. And the other thing they said is the benefits this year will probably remain flat. Remember last year we had that GMR was like 17% they had a budget for in the schools. So that really pushed up in the default and proposed budgets in the benefit line. It ended up being about 13%. And this year, the GMR is only about 5%. So that you'll actually see is pretty flat on the benefit line coming across for the projected increases this year.
Last year was the big increase in
Yeah.
teacher retirement as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, they're cutting the amount that they have to, on the benefit side, that they have to contribute to retirement is reduced this year. So you'll see that down a little bit. And there's some other nickel dime stuff that I don't want to belabor that right now at this point. And the food services that you see at the line, you know how they put that line item in their budget, but then it's reimbursed somewhat by the state. There's concern in their neck of the woods on that, because with the costs of food are going up, that they may have to add a line item in the budget to help pay for that. That's to be determined. That's maybe the budget workshop. They'll talk more about that. And on the SAU side of it, I was only interested to see what the projected increase was. When I say SAU, what I'm talking about there for the new folks is the SAU services 4 school districts. They've got Stoddard, they've got Henniker, they've got Stark, and they've got Weare. And the costs for their operation, overhead over there, is distributed amongst each of the school district budgets. And when you see all the Weare School District, you'll see it'll go in, it'll have all this and all that. And there'll be this one line in there that says SAU contribution, whatever. And there'll be a one-line item, and that's what our shared cost is. Well, this year, the increase is going to be about 3%, I think. It's about $62,000 and about 1.7 million that they have in their budget. Because they have a staff of 18 and overhead associated with running the SAU. And ironically, the distribution of the $60,000 increase, they have some formula they use for the percentage of students that come from Weare and Henniker and how it's distributed. The impact in Weare is only about a $500 increase on a $60,000 increase in the SAU budget from what it was a year ago. The Stark one, though, is about $28,000, which will then further be split up between Weare and Henniker. So you'll see that in there, but it's not, I was surprised to see it. I mean,
I think they use a formula that includes student population as well.
Student population, like the shared cost for Stark.
But I think there's a part of the
Yeah,
town's total valuation
that's in there too, yeah.
So that could be why it didn't go up much, because it might have gone up a lot last year
I think-
because of being
Yeah,
revalued.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, that was the SAU thing. They also said, Chris said, or Jackie, I think Chris had talked to Jackie, but they want to meet with us sometime after the budget workshop, which is the 6th of December, sometime between there and before Christmas week.
Before Christmas.
Before, yeah, they'd like to, so that, they don't have a set date yet, because they're going to do the budget workshop, and then we should be in touch with them to see if they have a date that would work to at least come down and present their budget, you know.
And they
before.
presented both on the same
I think they
day.
did last year.
Yeah.
I think they came down and talked about both of them, at least to give us, and that allows in December a little give and take of if we have concerns. So sometimes they can take that back because they haven't had their public hearing yet, and then they can make changes and adjustments and in order to get our blessing on their budget. Although right now it's like only a 0.3% difference between proposed and default.
Tom, do you have anything to add to that?
No,
I wasn't trying to.
yeah, no, I haven't met with Chris, but, planning to go to that budget review on the 6th.
What time did you say that was?
6,
5 to 7?
5 to 7 at Weare Middle School is, and it wasn't on their website as of yesterday, but
It
that's,
is now.
it is now? Okay, yeah, the gal that does their website said she was gonna put it on, so she did, okay.
And
I think-
it has been not uncommon for other members of our group to go to the budget presentations themselves, you know. So certainly anybody is welcome to go. It doesn't have to be just those assigned to the
Sure.
school district, depending on your family schedule and so forth.
And the next Ware School Board meeting is 20 December. And the next Stark School Board meeting is the 14th of December. For those who, that's on the website, the SAU website, you can pick that off.
How about the John Stark Committee? Anything,
The budget work session was yesterday.
pardon me?
The work session was yesterday
For
on
John
their
Stark?
budget for John Stark. Yeah, it was I don't know. I don't know what came out of that. I'm not the Stark guy.
We had Gary, John, and Leo, who's not here. Either Gary or John, you have
I
anything?
couldn't go, so.
We're gonna hear it all here anyways.
Yep.
You know, they come in and they do the presentation here, and I guess we'll have to put another date in there for December if they want to have it before Christmas.
Yeah.
To see what we can do. So, as far as the town,
Give them our date.
pardon me?
Give them our date.
Yeah, I did. It's on our,
Because you're not gonna have much time between that schedule they just gave you.
you mean the department head date? Give them that?
Give them the 7th.
No, school, they won't. They just had their budget.
Well, they can't fling orders. Pardon my expression.
They won't be, they have their work session on
We'll
the,
meet the 24th of December.
what's that?
We'll meet the 24th of December. I'm trying to accommodate everybody.
Well, I'm just saying that they have their budget
We'll
work
be
session.
here a half a day, 12 hours.
Work session on the 6th, they're not gonna wanna troop down here on the 7th and try to present what they just may have made adjustments to on the 6th then.
Well,
No, I'm just,
if they came on the 24th, they might expect us all to play Santa Claus.
Well, I'm just trying to work in the schedules here. Because the third Wednesday doesn't work.
Pardon me?
Third Wednesday doesn't work.
Oh, Historical Society, well, we don't,
Yeah, we might have to do,
I don't think, we don't meet in December.
So give them 21st. The conservation has the 14th.
pardon me, conservation is the
It's the
4th.
14th of December.
Okay, but we don't have to meet on Wednesdays.
yeah.
As far as availability of this room, you're limited.
Right,
though.
we'd have to look, because the planning board would use,
Wednesday is the second Wednesdays used. That's why I used.
I'm sorry, I know you're having a hard time talking, as I am myself, but The second Wednesday,
That's the only Wednesday this room is used.
the only Wednesday this room is used.
Right, that's why we looked at the
Right.
others.
So we would be good for the 14th or the 21st,
Only the 21st.
only the 21st.
Conservation is 14th.
Okay, I'll get it eventually, sorry.
Okay.
So that's one thing we could offer the school district, the 21st, which would be a Wednesday. Why don't you just put that in tentatively on the sheet that I gave you, and I'll see if I can clear that up with the SAU.
Would that would be Weare and,
That's the way we did it last year. They
Oh, all
brought,
of them
they
together.
brought, basically, the staff from the SAU came in with the school board chairs from the two different districts to present. With most of the presentation coming from the professional staff, the superintendent, assistant superintendent, business administrator. Okay.
They do have the budget summaries for Stark are up on the website as well, like this for Weare. And I don't know what they had at their work session, but it was actually looks like from last year to this year, it's like a 3% budget increase, and the difference between the proposed and the default is about 1%. It's about 152,000 difference. So, but that's preliminary. That's just like the general overview. That's up on the website.
On the SAU website?
yeah.
Yeah, you go SAU 24, and then you hit Weare School Board, and then you look at budget info, it'll come up, and usually the Weare School District a little bit behind. It starts usually a couple weeks ahead. And then if you hit John Stark School Board, you hit budget information, you'll see the two summary sheets, at least for this year. Now, they may be posting more on a more detailed budget based on what they did yesterday at some point.
Okay.
Yep.
There have been at least two presentations last night for the town. Would either of you like to comment on those? The budget presentations by the police department or the library?
I can if you don't.
You can do it,
Okay.
Jim.
I watched it online because I couldn't get here in person due to some other scheduling things that happened yesterday afternoon. But basically, everything that he talked about today, they said. So the only thing that was different was the police chief did look at, and I think this was actually a separate presentation. It wasn't part of the budget presentation of him incorporating into his operating budget the cars and the 24/7 coverage for the police department. So I believe that's actually, distinct and separate from what they presented as far as the budget goes.
Yeah.
Is that
That-
accurate, Naomi? It's separate.
24/7 coverage would have to go on as a special,
Right.
because of new hirings.
Yeah, but it wasn't part of the SIP presentation.
No, the police chief did say that everything he presented last night is on the police department
Yep.
website, so any of us can go and
You can get
and
through ours.
review that.
If you go to the police department on ours, it's right there.
Yeah.
They also posted it on Facebook today, not that I didn't like, they posted the links to the budget.
Plus, when they come, they give you all the stuff. So we
Yeah.
hand it out.
Yeah, there's
Yeah,
no
so
need
there,
to go-
there were no changes from what they talked about yesterday to what Jack presented today.
Okay. And then the library presentation was fairly brief, just for the new folks. The Board of Selectmen pretty much have to accept the library budget as one line, the bottom line, because the trustees set the budget and the individual lines for the library, trustees of the library. So, and again, it was a one-page, and you'll have the same handout when they come. Okay. Anything else that anybody would like to bring up tonight?
I have one thing. Do we have any minutes to review and approve from the last meeting?
Did we get those? Did Leah send those? I think she did.
I didn't see them.
I didn't see them
Okay, then we'll just look at them the next time around.
And just for everyone's awareness, the document that we're supposed to be working to, called the Finance Committee Ordinance, does say that within 144 hours of us meeting, that those minutes are supposed to be available for public inspection in the Selectman's office. So we are beyond 144 hours from our last meeting by
Right.
just a few hours.
We're not the only ones.
Well, you know, it's the old thing, if your, you
There
know,
are
your buddies
quite a
in
few
elementary
that are-
school jumped off the bridge, would you do it too? You know, that's what your mama used to tell you, right?
Yeah, she did.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, that's, my dad
I think it was my grandma.
often.
Yep.
Okay. Anything else? We'll work on the minutes. I'll, hopefully, Leah isn't too sick.
And the next meeting is December 7th, did you say? Yeah.
December 7th, right? And that's when the department heads will present to us, right?
That's a Wednesday, Gary.
Yeah, I'm gone then, but, so.
Okay. So I guess if that's it as far as other things, that we're good to go home.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Right.